Week 8, we're at the halfway point of guitar building class, and I'm just now starting to figure out that if you don't press the record button, the video camera doesn't record. Stand by. Hey everybody, welcome back to Rattlecan Guitar Restorations. I'm James, and this is week 8 of MET 1151, guitar manufacturing using STEM principles. We are at the halfway point. Let me get you caught up on the fun that we have had. I didn't really work on the guitar very much this week outside of class. What I mostly spent my time on was we got a new vise. This is very similar to a repair vise that you were going to see offered by one of the big manufacturers. They have made some modifications to a standard woodworker's vise. And I'm cheap and sometimes not so smart. So I'm attempting to affect some of those modifications on my own. This is one that I got this one from Woodcraft. This is, I guess, the Wood River brand woodworker's vise. They call it a rotating vise, rotating bench vise. We're going to do a whole episode on the circus that this is, trying to get this thing modified to the way that I want it. But anyways, that's something that we worked on. Something else that we also got in the mail, we got a purchase that we had made from an organization called Guitar Decadence. And these are water slide decals that we're going to use on this project. I've used a couple of different water slide decal manufacturers over the years. I've not been dissatisfied with any of them, but this one just happened to be in America, and that makes things a little easier, makes things go a little quicker. We're going to give this a shot. In guitar building class, I just did this little mock-up of what may eventually this might look like at some point. I just had sometimes you just get a feeling and you want to double check and triple check and make sure. I just wasn't real happy with where my placement was for my scale length. Again, the scale length is supposed to be from the last point of contact on your bridge saddle to the edge of the nut, the inside edge of the nut. So we had just done kind of a guesstimate of where to put those saddles, and I wasn't happy with that because that's just the way I am. So what I did was I took my saddle, put a piece of tape on the side, and I measured the maximum and the minimum adjustments on that thin E string, the bottom E string, and then I marked the halfway point, because that gives me the most positive and negative throw for when we're trying to set the intonation. And then I burned an inch on the tape measure, and you can see when I measure the nut, we're kind of right there. So that made me more happier. And here it is on the bench laid out. It gives me a more precise feeling than just that looks good. I don't know if that's just being in machinist class too long or what, but yeah, I had to do it. I feel better about it. And then in class, the push is on to get our fretboards glued to the neck, because we're kind of on a time frame of trying to get stuff done, and we were somewhat behind. So and in kind of the spirit of trying to get everybody moving along, we have some people that they don't have any experience with any of these machines, drill presses and bandsaws and stuff like that. So I find it a better use of my time during most of the class to just help other people out. Where to put your fingers. Let's get rid of these sleeves around a spinning death machine. Let's try to keep all of our fingers, and let's try to keep our skin where it is when we woke up this morning, because I enjoy I enjoy introducing people to machinery and stuff like that. But you got to realize you are the softest thing in this shop. And if you get wrapped up in one of these machines, it's going to do horrible things to your body, and not in a fun way. I'm a big personal safety, introduced to the concepts, and and then you do with it what you may after that. But sometimes you're just like, let me help you out. So what we had to do is we had to just drill our fret marker holes in our fingerboard. We're just using a 1/4-inch Forstner bit. But even that, it's just a little drill bit. But if you get wrapped up in that, it is, as a friend of the channel, Jay, and I were discussing yesterday, if you get wrapped up around something like that, it is going to try to wrap you around the radius of whatever it is. And if the radius is something skinny, let's just say the diameter of a Forstner bit, and it's trying to wrap your finger around that, it is going to masticate your bone into multiple pieces. I can't even talk right. Perhaps I need more coffee. Today's coffee mug is from ComSub Ron 11. I don't even know if I said that right, but stay frosty. So we got the fret dot holes drilled. We fitted the truss rod. We have a dual action truss rod that slides down in a channel. It's already been cut. I don't know why I don't have a picture of that. That's très bizarre. So it's a tight fit. So we're having to use sandpaper and some little bitty chisels trying to get that truss rod to fit down in there, snug but not tight, not floppy, loose around. And then once we got that done, they're wrapping they're using a clamp on the nut end, and then they wrap with rubber bands from the heel back towards the nut. You can do it that way. They've been doing it that way for, 10 years. I go the other way. What I did was I wrapped mine up the way that they ask us to do it. Because I'm trying to be a good boy, trying to do things the way that we're instructicated to do it. We do have a project coming up. Perhaps I've said too much. So we got our necks, they got their necks glued up. I came home after I changed a flat tire on my truck. That's always fun. And these are the materials that I'm using to affixate the fretboard markers. I like the 2P10 system. I like the fact that the glue and the accelerator don't come in those dainty little bottles and those little, finger pumpy bottle things. Just because the scale when I'm on it, the scale with which I use this stuff, I need a tall boy can. I just put a dab of super glue into the hole, and I put the rod in, give it a little tap with a hammer after I have sprayed the activator on the end of the rod. So in the half a second or second that it takes me to get that hammered down in there, it's already set. A good tip that they offered is split your rod in half. That way you can glue and set, then you can saw one off, glue it in the next hole, saw it off, glue it in the next hole, and you can kind of ping pong back and forth. I was trying to remember a tip that I had that I had seen ages ago, and I couldn't remember it in class for the longest time. I finally remembered it. Is that you punch a hole in a business card, and that way, even though I've got this nifty little Veritas flush cut saw, little thin thing, a pull saw, and even though it's a flush cut saw, I could still screw it up. I could still dig it into the fingerboard. So you take a business card and you slide it down over your rod. When you saw that off of there, it just leaves a little nubbin there. And I would rather sand the nubbin than try to figure out a way to fill in a gouge on this Pal Faro fingerboard. So, that went fairly well. And we got it cleaned up. It looks all right. And then, of course, we put some naphtha on the headstock because the figure is just So nice. And then I installed my truss rod, which again, why do I not have a picture of that? I don't understand it. Is it shy? Does it not want the publicity? Is it happy being behind the scenes, being mysterious? Who knows? And then I just used, I don't use rubber bands. I use these big PT bands because I've wrecked my shoulders and been to physical therapy so much for repeated shoulder injuries over the years that I've just got piles of these things laying around. So that's what I use to wrap my fingerboards after I've glued them on. I'm just using regular red Type Bond. And then we put it in our nifty new vise, which is functional, but it has some tweaks that we still need to do to it. And that's what I did this week at school. Now, this week, we also had somebody do us a solid. Note to self, I can't play that video clip while I'm recording a voiceover audio track because it will shut off. First world problems. We got a friend who did us a solid, and remember those 4 pieces of maple that I discovered that I had for a while and I actually just kind of forgotten about them. He was able to take those and resaw those for us and then plane them down and then run them through the sander. So we now have 8 lovely, highly figured maple fretboards for, a Fender scale guitar. And those are, I have a project coming up that I'm actually working on right now behind the scenes so that we can release those in a little faster fashion than kind of real time like we're doing this. But anyways, that's coming up, and those things look just fantastic. So you'll want to stay tuned for that. So anyways, that's what we did in guitar building class this week. Next week, I'm not quite sure. We could be installing the side dots for the fret markers, possibly. We could be fretting, maybe. I bet we'll put the radius on the fretboard. So we're going to sand for a bazillion hours. And that'll be fun. And then maybe we'll start working on frets. I don't know. We'll just have to see. So anyways, remember, check guitarbuilding.org. I am in #not sponsored. I don't get anything from them, but look in your area and see if there is a guitar building class that you or your kids or somebody else's kids could get involved in. If there's not one in your area and you have, if you know the industrial arts teacher at your school and they don't have this program, maybe you could be the liaison between him and the science teachers and the math teachers and get something going. This is an extremely popular program. I think it's a great way to get kids hooked into seeing that there is a link between the boring math or the boring science that they're doing in school and cool everyday applications. And holy buckets, wait a minute, could I do this for a living? That might be cool. If we can spark the next round of guitar builders, or even not guitar builders, if we can get somebody excited about engineering, or technology, any of this type of stuff, if we can infect somebody early in the process and get them on a track, to finding something that they enjoy doing and can provide for them, a really good livelihood, that would be pretty cool, wouldn't it? And you could possibly be a spark in your area that causes that to happen. Anyways, I'm James. That's what we did this week in guitar building class. If you got questions or comments, put them in the comment section beneath the sermon notes. Be sure to subscribe, hit the little bell so you get notified the next time I grace the airwaves with my sultry voice. And remember, if I can do it, you can do it. This stuff is not, well, I mean, it could be rocket science if you choose to make it like that. Anyways, I'm James. You guys have a great week. Cheers. Hey everybody, thanks for hanging out with us this afternoon here at Rattlecan Guitar Restorations. If you're not already subscribed, make sure to click my beautiful face above. Hit the bell to be notified next time we drop a video. Here's a video that the Hive Mind has picked out especially for you. And remember, if I can do it, you can do it. You guys have a great weekend. Shut up, cat. Cheers.